Start again. Good morning and welcome to today's meeting of the New York City Campaign Finance Board. First item on our agenda is to approve the minutes of our February 15th meeting. I move their approval. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. Next item on our agenda is my opening remarks. So welcome again. Happy Women's History Month. This is our third official meeting of the year, and I'd like to take this time to remind everyone that early voting for New York's presidential primaries starts next Saturday. You can visit nycvotes.org to find more information about the upcoming primaries. Today, the board will be voting on two enforcement matters related to an independent spender and a committee from the 2021 election cycle. Turn over now to our Executive Director, Paul Ryan.
Thank you, Chair Schaefer. Good morning. I have a few updates and reminders to share. Last weekend, our candidate services team gave a presentation to the Latino Leadership Institute as part of their Electoral Activism and Leadership Academy, which is a certificate program at the City University of New York. The Campaign Finance Board has been a partner of the Latino Leadership Institute for many years, helping to educate future leaders on the demands of running for office at the local level and understanding the compliance and public financing requirements, especially important for first-time candidates and campaigns. Also, as Chair Schaefer just mentioned, as a reminder, early voting in New York's presidential primary election begins 1 week from Saturday on March 23rd. The 23rd is also the last day for New Yorkers to register to vote in that election. Through our New York City Votes initiative, we're getting New Yorkers ready to participate. Our Get Out the Vote advertising is starting to appear around the city, on subways, bus shelters, and other locations. We're especially excited about a series of murals that have gone up around the city in those neighborhoods we've identified as in particular need of engagement. We're organizing a day of action to conduct outreach to voters at the site of one of these murals in Bushwick to kick off early voting next weekend. For details on this and our full slate of upcoming voter outreach events, you can visit the website for our New York City Votes initiative at nycvotes.org. Much of this outreach is geared towards making voters aware of our online voter guide for the primary election, which will be published at nycvotes.org by early next week. We've obtained profile information from a number of presidential candidates who will appear on the ballot. This guide also contains general information about how to cast your ballot, and it's translated into 13 languages, making it accessible to more New Yorkers with limited English proficiency. Early voting concludes on Sunday, March 30th, and primary election day is Tuesday, April 2nd. And that's it for me.
Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is the announcement of campaigns in compliance. Well, the following candidates have completed the post-election audit process without any violations and penalties assessed by the Campaign Finance Board. The board recognizes the diligence of the candidates and their campaign staff in running campaigns that maintain compliance with New York City's campaign finance laws. Of these campaigns, you will see a number of them are first-time candidates with the CFB. These are all from the 2021 election cycle. Candidate Eric Bottcher was a candidate for the City Council District number 3, and he was a first-time candidate. Henry Butler, candidate for City Council District number 36. Johanna Garcia, candidate for City Council District number 10, also a first-time candidate. David Gold, a candidate for City Council District number 6, a first-time candidate. Jesse Lehman, candidate for City Council District number 26. I'm sorry, David Gold was District 6. Jesse Lehman, a candidate for City Council District 26, a first-time candidate. Mino Laura, a candidate for City Council District 11. Maud Marone, a candidate for City Council District 1, a first-time candidate. And Lincoln Ressler, candidate for City Council District number 33, also first-time candidate. Next item on our agenda is an appearance.
There were a few other names.
Sorry, thank you. There was a second page that I missed. Sorry about that. I was wondering why the numbers didn't add up. Next, William Rivera, City Council District number 18. Pierina Sanchez, candidate for City Council District 14, a first-time candidate. Tricia Shimamura, candidate for City Council District 5, first-time candidate. And Natasha Williams, the candidate for City Council District 26, first-time candidate. Next item on our agenda is an appearance in connection with a enforcement proceeding against an independent spender. The independent spender was Carpenters for Progress. This concerns the 2023 primary election. So I'll ask our staff from the CFB to come forward and the representatives for Carpenters for Progress to have a seat at the other table. Morning. I know you've appeared before, but I'll briefly state our procedure, which is we ask the CFB staff to make a short introduction as to what the issues are, essentially just teeing them up, not really an argument. You'll then have the opportunity to make your arguments. There'll be, I'm sure, some response from CFB staff, some occasional questions from members of the board. After the back and forth is completed, we'll take a break and go into deliberations, and then we'll come back and announce our decision. So Jason Yee of our legal staff, why don't you tee up the issue for us?
Thank you, Chair Schaefer. Good morning. My name is Jason Yee. I am Senior Associate Counsel here at the CFB. Before the board is the matter of Carpenters for Progress, an independent spender in the 2023 primary election. CFB staff recommends that the board finds that the spender committed violations of the Campaign Finance Act and board rules as follows and assess penalties according to the penalty guidelines. Late reporting and failure to respond timely to requests for documentation and information. The spender contests the penalty recommendation.
Thank you. Please introduce yourselves and then proceed.
Good morning. My name is Bob Bishop. I'm one of the founding partners of Pitta Law LLP and also a founding member of Pitta Bishop in Belgiano. To my right is Arden Tergani. He's my associate here. And are you ready for me to?
Yes.
Complete?
We'll launch right in.
Great. Thank you. Well, good morning. It's good to see you all again. And it's been a while since I've appeared before this body. And I want to say that over the years, our philosophy as a firm representing people before the Campaign Finance Board is not how to evade the law, it's how to comply. We try scrupulously to make sure that everyone that we represent fulfills not only the actual technical aspects of the law, but the spirit of the law. And, you know, we work very closely with staff as we go forward. Now, I have a long, complicated statement, which my associate has prepared. It's really good, but I'm not going to do that because it really doesn't call for it. You've got the facts. Staff has presented the facts. We basically did not make sure that the Campaign Finance Board had copies of communications that looked like this, identified, you know, Carpenters for Progress that were mailed out in two different city council races. One was a winning race, one was a losing race. So, you know, we're at least as good as Ted Williams, I guess. But, you know, the bottom line is through a series of unfortunate fact patterns, through some human errors, and through what I would call some cranky computer things, you know, like, you know, this finding the second page of today's document, or downstairs being told by security that there was no public hearings today, and, you know, things happen. And, you know, it's nothing that Carpenters for Progress did that was wrong. They hired us. Our job is to make sure that they comply. And there were mistakes. There were, as I said, some human errors. There were some glitchy computer things. And, you know, a couple of, there was some communication error where the Carpenters for Progress had not properly listed the correct liaison early on. We took attempts to correct that. I see that correction, according to what I was looking at on the internet yesterday, has uncorrected itself, so we'll take steps along the way to address it. But the bottom line is, my firm, us, we're supposed to deal with that. We're supposed to guide our clients through it, and we failed in that aspect. And I would like to say that, oh, really, if you look at it this way, we complied. No, we tried to comply. We did not comply. And I'm here, I don't want anyone below me in the firm to be here in this situation. It's my responsibility. They report to me. Some things happened not the way they should. And as a result, we've had these filings, which as much as, I don't know, 3 weeks late. Is that about right? And some were a couple of days. We can quibble over that. But it all adds up to, when you look at the recommended charge, it's coming up to about $74,000. And what I'm suggesting is that, you know, you're not the staff. The staff says, this is the chart, this is the penalty. That's their job. Your job is to administer justice and to make sure that, how should I say it, the penalty matches the violation. And we've provided in our responses a couple of alternative ways to do the calculations. And rather than 74,000, I've got one very creative response that says about $1,000. I've got another a little less creative that says about $12,000. And we're not saying that we're not to blame, because we are. We are not causing Carpenters for Progress to pay this penalty. It was our job to make sure that they were relatively penalty free. We're taking the responsibility, but we're asking honestly for some consideration, a lot of consideration, based on our track record, based on the mitigating circumstances that there was no intent whatsoever to mislead the public. There were filings with the State Board of Election that covered a lot of this. The filings as to how much money was spent on this were done in a relatively timely manner. These things were filed a little late, but when these went to the public, it's not like it says Carpenters for Progress in 6-point type at the bottom. It's right up there in the corner. The Carpenters are proud of the people they work for, and they wanted their members to know that, and they wanted members of the public to know that the Carpenters stood with them. And, you know, just as we're very proud of representing the Carpenters, we're also saying we were trying our best. And even with all of our expertise, the fact that we have folks that are doing this all the time, we still made mistakes. And I'm suggesting that those mistakes don't merit $74,000 thereabouts. I'd love to say it's a slap on the wrist, Bob, do better next time, but I'm realistic, and I greatly appreciate your time, consideration, and happy to answer any questions.
So let me start by acknowledging appreciation for your forthrightness. You know, there's late and there's late. And obviously, when the filing doesn't occur till after the election, it's particularly serious, and whether intentionally or not. And I accept your representation and that it was unintentional, and I have no reason to think otherwise. When it occurs after the election, the purpose of the law is defeated. But before we get into that discussion, kind of the philosophical policy discussion, there's one factual issue that I think is up for grabs. You made reference to computer glitches, and in your submission, you talked about trying to submit things and running into problems. We are told by our staff that we have no record of that, no record of those glitches or attempts to file. And so there's actually a factual, it's really the only factual dispute. Everything else seems to be pretty clear. But I'd like you to address that a little bit for us, because we're a little bit at a loss to understand what it is exactly you did and what the problem was.
Well, I can appreciate that. Not at a loss as to why Ms. Grossman's name is showing up on the records after being remedied and deleted and, someone else's name showing up before.
But tell us from your perspective what happened.
From my perspective, it was a case of not hitting submit and signing out before there was a registration of the data which was filed on about June 16th. A recognition of that letter, that mistake probably in early July. And then I think the filing dates were around July 7th. So I would, I've gone through this. I've asked for screenshots. I've asked for, you can imagine on an internal review, we've looked for everything. And what I have is the word of an associate that I trust very much that he hit submit. And I said, well, what about the next screen? And he, whatever happened, I can't say. I can't say whether there's, a breadcrumb trail within your computer. I'm sure you've got very sophisticated computers and they know when.
And we've looked.
I know when someone signs on, but if they enter information and they don't, and that could be a problem with his mouse for all I know. I can't explain that.
Okay.
I can't explain it, but I do know that from the pattern of our internal correspondence, it appears to us that certainly there was an effort to comply by June 16th where that was necessary. Some of the items were, as I said, we could quibble over individual dates, but it doesn't matter. The larger scale is what matters here.
I just want to make sure I understand. Are you saying that for all the items, the filing wasn't until July 6th, that there was an attempt to actually file all of those items before?
There were some items that were not due, say June 16th. And I'm not saying that those were filed prematurely.
Well, these items were due between June 19th and 21st and all filed on July 6th. So my question is it your position that on the dates that they were due was actually an attempt to file what was ultimately filed on July 6th?
Yes. Yes, I'm turning to my expert on the subject matter. There were efforts to file it. And what I'm
All the materials.
Well, what I do want to say, Member Davis, is that these materials, again, this is the typical example. I got all of them here. When they went out, when they were, we can't file until they're actually distributed, these materials, the way the reporting is. But the money that was spent on these was filed in the initial filing. And then it's sort of like subdivided.
Yeah, but the money, that's not public. The invoice isn't public.
I understand, but we have to file that with you.
Right.
What's at issue were these images of these pieces of paper that were not filed in a timely manner. And yet, when they're mailed to the public,
It's visible, you're saying.
it's very, very visible as to who has paid for it and what the purpose is. There's no attempt to obscure. Now, I'd love to rewrite history and say that, literally blame some computers, blame the cloud or whatever. I don't have sufficient documentation to do that.
Got it.
I can say from our internal review of correspondence, there certainly was an effort to comply. I can say that as far as our firm is concerned, we've turned to the carpenters and said, this is on us. And I say that to you as well. But there at no time was an effort to obscure the true source of the funding. And, these were a handful of communications in races which had lots of communication, lots of groundwork. This was not there were two relatively controversial elections. As I said, the the one that we did, I think we did the most work on, was unsuccessful. And it just shows you that sometimes the larger public issues outweigh that groundwork.
The ones that were filed before the election, but were late, I guess they were all filed on June 16th. Was there, so in addressing Mr. Davis's question, his question was specifically about the ones that were filed on July 6th. What about the ones that were filed on June 16th? They're
The
just-
ones filed on June 16th were filed on that date because initially it was correspondence between the Campaign Finance Board going back before June 6th, and somebody who was no longer the authorized representative of the Carpenters for Progress. By the time that was worked out, we went through a period where it was where our staff was not able to access the Campaign Finance Board's computers for reasons that were worked out between your staff and my folks. And the 16th was the soonest they were able to get those in.
Other questions by members of the board?
Can I just take a quick look at those?
I just want to hear.
We got it front and back.
No.
Save me a little wait.
I'm going to come back to the CFP staff.
One of the candidates to the official was picked out.
Okay,
Anyone else wants to?
Jason, would you like to respond?
Sure. So, Chair Schaefer, members of the board, I will say, one thing that was mentioned by Mr. Bishop is it's time gap that resulted in late reporting on June 16th. For the record, and according to our records and according to the response to the penalty notice by the spender, the contact between CFP staff and the correct authorized representative, or I believe Mr. Tagani, was on June 14th. So there is still a time gap where cites unexplained technical issues of 2 days that they were seemingly unable to make that timely filing. And it's not clear to staff what those issues were, given that they had access on the 14th. There's a lot of, there are other questions if the board would like to focus on any particular issue, I'd be happy to speak.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think the issue here, and of course, this is a relatively new area for us, and we're obviously interested in rigorously enforcing an important law. At the same time, we're always interested in trying to do justice and make sure that the penalty fits the offense. And then I think that's, that balances the issue here. I don't know that there's anything specific about any one of these things.
Actual primary date was June 26th. I believe.
Yes.
So, with respect, there were no technical issues here, and I do believe I know what's being referred to. On June 14th, the board had become aware of 2 flyers out in the world that had not been reported. So on the 14th in the morning, the board reached out to the authorized representative, the treasurer of record from 2021. We received a reply from her within minutes that she was no longer, in fact, representing Carpenters, and referred us to 2 people at Carpenters. Minutes later, we reached out to those people. And about an hour and a half later, 2 hours later, Mr. Tagani responded, called in, and there was some back and forth. And by 2:45 that afternoon, Mr. Tagani had access to the system. We received information through the system about the designation of a contact person. Mr. Cook, I get his last name wrong. Paul Persa, thank you very much. So by that afternoon, full access was available to the system. The data entry of the 5 pieces, however, was not done until 2 days later on the 16th. On the 16th, we noted that we had still not received one form from carpenters that would allow them to file. They could do the data entry, but not file, which an authorized representative form. So we reached out sometime after 11 that morning. Within moments, Mr. Degani responded, the form was filed. So they had full data entry rights as of the 14th, and filing 16th, they filed on 16th. But there were no technical issues. It was simply that the records still showed the person responsible back was no longer representing the firm, and the data entry was done 2 days later after carpenters got access to the system.
Let me ask you one sort of general philosophical question, since this is one of the very, not the first, but one of the early enforcement proceedings involving independent expenditures. The penalty guidelines as they are drafted on the assumption that the failure to file was unintentional. That is, they don't assume intentionality. Is that fair to say? Okay. Anything else?
I would point out that on the 16th, we had correspondence from Kyle Kennedy, who indicated, and trying to work this out. Thank you for the submission to Artie, and I want to verify the account, but there's an oddity on my end that I've never seen before that's preventing verification. And I just sort of point that out to either, we might have user error. We might have some unfamiliarities. Sometimes my telephone works really well. I can forward emails. Sometimes it doesn't. But as good as the technology is, some things don't always go the way you hope they would go. And for those of you that have dealt with the internal bureaucracies of law firms, you probably know that from the 14th to the 16th is almost light speed sometimes. We try our best, Jesse. We really do. In a case like this, I'm telling you, this is on us. And we would like it to be different, but I can't rewrite history.
Fair enough. Okay.
Just two thoughts on that. Yes, on the 16th, when the form was submitted, Mr. Kennedy recognized that an error had been made at your end. It's okay, and it was resolved at 12:31 in a back and forth. The other thing I'd like to point out is that even if the filing had been done on 14th, which it couldn't have been because the data entry for it wasn't done until the 16th, it still would have been late.
I understand that. I'm not disputing any of the facts here. Intent to file, dropping it in a mailbox, that doesn't count in this form. I totally agree with that. But I do think it goes towards the consideration of the penalties as to what is appropriate. We're not going to change our philosophy with our clients that they must comply with the law, and we'll show them how. If we got any questions, we'll work with you and your colleagues through the various unique circumstances that happen. Not everything's in that Bible called the Campaign Finance Manual. There's always something new, and I very proudly put our firm's reputation up against any other firm that gets involved in this work for our efforts to try and do the right thing. It didn't happen this time, and for that I regret it. But when I I'm not going to draw parallels as to what $74,000 means to our firm. It's a lot of money. And I don't think the transgressions merit that level of penalty.
Just one last question.
Yes, sir.
How widespread, I mean, do you have any sense of the volume of these mailings?
Each mailing averaged about $15,000. I presume that they were district-wide mailings or targeted. They may have been targeted. I don't have the details on that. We have an overall cost factor for all of the mailings, and then it's divided into the number of mailings. So it's,
I was just
it's
trying to
hard
get a
to
sense
say.
of how many people received it.
I think it'd be fair to say that registered Democrats within the district received it or may have received it. And it'd be more likely that it was targeted primary voters, but I can't,
People with a history of voting in private.
Yeah, I would
Got it.
think that would be the case. Certainly, that's the way I would spend the money. This was not, we were there to report the overall.
No, I was just trying to get a sense if you knew, that's all.
Yep.
All right. If there's nothing further, we're going to repair to the other room to deliberate. It's been a little while.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
My pleasure.
Welcome aboard.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a great first month and
All right, we're back in session. Is it recording yet? Oh, okay, let me, I can see the screen, so let me know when Dawn appears on the screen.
We can't see.
All set?
Yep.
Recording? Good. Okay, with respect to the matter of Carpenters for Progress and Independent Spender in the 2023 election cycle, the board has deliberated, and I will put forth the motion, which is that the board find the following violation: late reporting and failure to respond timely to requests for documentation information, and the following penalty, $40,000. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda involves a complaint with respect to the Harry Kagan campaign in 2021. Based on the recommendation of our staff, I move that we dismiss that complaint. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? The motion carries. Finally, I propose we go into executive session for some discussion, but no action, and adjourn directly from the executive session. Is there a second to that? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? The motion carries. Thank you. We're done for today.